Que puissions démarrer dans les délais prévus. So headsets at the end of the room here so that you can understand both English and French since we have both languages during this session. Thanks. So please take your headsets, prenez vos casques, je vous prie, de façon à ce que nous puissions commencer. Nos panélistes sont présents, ils se mettent en place. Je vous invite à prendre les places devant. There is no difficulty at all with getting closer to the stage. Okay, let's start this session. I suppose one of your last sessions of the day. I hope you have kept some energy and enthusiasm for this session dedicated to nature-based solutions for water and climate security. And we've been very happy to co-organize this event together with the Nature Conservancy and the World Water Council. My name is Eric Tardieu. I'm the Secretary General of the International Network of Basin Organizations, and on our behalf, on behalf of our colleagues, you are very welcome to this session. The session, I will be your master of ceremony during this session, and so that's my role now, to give the floor for an introduction to the session to Mrs. Andrea Erickson-Quiroz. Andrea is Managing Director of the Water Security Department of the Nature Conservancy, and she will also speak as a Governor of the World Water Council. Andrea, the floor is yours.
There we go. That's yours, right?
It is. I can't see it, though. I only see myself, which is not as nice. Thank you, and good afternoon. Again, my name is Andrea Erickson-Quiroz with the Nature Conservancy. Thank you to INBO, colleagues that are here today, and many very, very important dignitaries here to address us. I'm here today on behalf of the World Water Council as a governor, and on behalf of the president, Mr. Loic Fauchon. He sends his regards. And how important this topic is to the members of the World Water Council. There are over 600 organizations represented in 40 countries on 5 continents in the World Water Council. And what has come up and become very clear through the membership over the past few years is the critical role that natural systems play in our collective water futures, our water security, and in a climate that is changing, how important that we see it as a central part of our investments. And so this is a ground-up story that has caught fire with our membership. And because of that, we've been on a journey thinking about how we can activate more strongly around the issue of ecological integrity and water security and climate resilience. And so in the forum, we were pleased to be in Senegal, and the minister here from Senegal was our host at the World Water Forum, where all of the actors in the water sector gathered. And the real messages there were climate resilience, inclusion, and nature-based solutions. And those topics are so intertwined, as we'll hear today. So we've started a journey of finding the army of the willing. We have a declaration that has been signed by over 80 organizations. We invite you all to join us just to make the statement that there is no water security without ecological security. There is no ecological security if we don't solve for water security. And at the heart of that is the relationship to climate. So I'll take just a moment and talk just a little bit about nature-based solutions and what they are and their value. Nature-based solutions, I think, should be pretty clear, but they're just the things that we can do in the landscapes and waterscapes where we live and work that enhance our climate resilience and water security. So it may be protecting forests or grasslands, restoring wetlands, thinking about practices in agricultural areas where we can have best management practices that enhance how we're doing our agriculture in ways that enhance rural development, but also reduce runoff, erosion from soils, reduce uses of water. So nature-based solutions are a whole series of practices that we can employ. And the question is, how do we employ them at scale? How do we really make them a central driving force of how we invest in a more climate resilient, water secure world? A couple more things about what they present for us in terms of opportunities. So nature-based solutions are cost effective. At the Nature Conservancy, we did a study and looked at over 4,000 cities globally, large cities, and asked the question, how can nature-based solutions support water quality and water quantity goals of those communities? And in 4 out of 5, we found, in fact, a very positive relationship that cities could be investing in their catchments or in their watersheds and find better water quality and quantity outcomes. But importantly, a very large number of those cities could do that at a positive ROI, a very cost-effective way, meaning that they invest in their watersheds, it will actually save those cities money. So over 1,000 cities today could be saving money if we really could invest in nature-based solutions. They're an appreciating asset, and they themselves adapt to changes in climate, not in infinite ways, but nature has a power of being able to change and grow and heal itself over time in a way that built infrastructure cannot. And so it has value that grows over time as an appreciating asset. It's also something that has multiple benefits, and you'll hear this in the many panel presentations here. Multiple benefits like climate mitigation, rural development, biodiversity value, the different aspects of water security and flow, quantity, and quality. In that, then we also have multiple payers. So it's a way of thinking about how do we bring together financing from different sectors, those who are interested in agricultural development, those who are interested in biodiversity, carbon markets, and water payers. And so it's a unifying force, and that's really my last point here. It is a whole of society approach. It is not about nature. It is about how we are connected to nature, and through that lens, how we make sure that we are inclusive. We think broadly and systemically about climate resilience and water security, and then set ourselves on a pathway for better outcomes in the future. You'll hear wonderful examples from Senegal, from the nations around Lake Victoria, from the nations around the Amazon, from Brazil and Europe. And I'm very pleased to be a part of this and to pass then this back to Eric for moderating the rest of our afternoon session together. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Andrea. Merci beaucoup, Madame Erickson, pour ces propos introductifs. Dans le premier temps de notre session, nous allons avoir l'honneur d'écouter le message de M. Serigne Mbaye, Thiam, ministre du Sénégal, de Mme Bérangère, Couillard, secrétaire d'État pour l'écologie au sein du ministère français de la transition écologique et de la cohésion territoriale, et de Mme Florika Fink-Hooijer, directrice générale pour l'environnement à la Commission européenne. Et sans attendre, j'ai l'honneur de vous céder la parole, Monsieur le ministre Serigne Mbaye Thiam, ministre de l'eau du Sénégal.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. Madame Bérangère, Couillard, secrétaire d'État chargée de l'écologie de la République française, Madame Florika Fink-Hooijer, chers panélistes, chers participants, c'est avec beaucoup d'intérêt que je prends part à cette importante session portant sur les solutions fondées sur la nature pour l'adaptation. Je remercie à cet égard le réseau international des organismes de bassin pour cette invitation et saisis cette occasion pour féliciter les organisateurs pour la pertinence de cet événement qui permettra de présenter des solutions réussies d'actions fondées sur la nature pour l'adaptation au changement climatique dans les bassins de nos fleuves, de nos lacs et de nos eaux souterraines. Je voudrais rappeler ici que les solutions fondées sur la nature sont aujourd'hui essentielles pour assurer la sécurité de l'eau et gérer les risques liés à l'eau, particulièrement en Afrique, où les changements climatiques génèrent des crises multiformes. C'est conscient de l'importance stratégique de ce sujet que le Sénégal a, lors du 9e Forum mondial de l'eau, proposé des actions visant à renforcer la résilience et la capacité d'adaptation au changement climatique et aux catastrophes naturelles. Ainsi, il est heureux de souligner que le Sénégal, où les événements extrêmes liés à l'eau ainsi que sa pollution coûtent déjà plus de 10% de son PIB chaque année, a au cours de ces dernières années développé plusieurs projets d'adaptation et de résilience du secteur de l'eau au changement climatique. Le gouvernement, ainsi, compte promouvoir et accélérer la mobilisation des eaux de surface et des eaux souterraines à travers de grands travaux d'aménagement, de drainage, de valorisation et de préservation pour soutenir l'alimentation en eau, pour soutenir le développement d'activités agropastorales et industrielles, ainsi que toute forme d'usage productif de l'eau. Ainsi, des projets et actions phares ont été mis en œuvre. La première action porte justement sur le développement de solutions fondées sur la nature, avec un vaste programme de restauration des fonctions écologiques du système du lac de Guiers. Le lac de Guiers étant un défluent du fleuve Sénégal, et c'est la réserve d'eau de surface la plus importante qui sert notamment à l'alimentation en eau de la ville de Dakar et des environs. Projet de restauration des fonctions écologiques du système du lac de Guiers qui a permis d'optimiser les ressources en eau, faisant passer les apports d'eau de 1,2 milliard à 3,2 milliards de mètres cubes. Un autre projet est celui de protection des ressources en eau et d'amélioration de la recharge des nappes en vue d'une gestion des forages de la zone de Pout, qui est une zone non loin de Dakar, projet qui a été financé par l'Agence française de développement et qui permettra de mettre en œuvre des solutions d'adaptation aux impacts du changement climatique sur la ressource en eau en promouvant des solutions fondées sur la nature. Il y a aussi le projet d'appui à la restauration de l'équilibre hydrosédimentaire de la lagune de Somone qui se trouve vers la zone de Mbour, une zone touristique. Projet fruit de la coopération entre l'Agence de l'eau Seine-Normandie, la Direction de la gestion et de la planification des ressources en eau du ministère de l'eau, l'OIEO, projet d'ailleurs qui a été labellisé dans le cadre de l'initiative Dakar 2022 du 9e Forum mondial de l'eau. Ce projet vise à contribuer à la préservation de la lagune et de sa qualité écologique à travers le maintien de sa dynamique hydrosédimentaire et l'amélioration des fonctionnalités écologiques de la lagune avec l'implication des communautés. Nous avons aussi d'autres projets majeurs de mobilisation des ressources en eau, notamment le projet de renforcement de la résilience des écosystèmes du Ferlo. Le Ferlo étant une zone du Sénégal qui est presque désertique maintenant, mais qui est attenante au lac de Guiers. Et le gouvernement du Sénégal a un projet de transfert d'eau pour restaurer ces vallées qui jadis avaient de l'eau. C'est un projet de 550 millions de dollars US et qui permettra de mettre en valeur 46 000 hectares pour promouvoir et redynamiser les activités agro-silvopastorales. La deuxième action porte sur des projets de mobilisation des ressources en eau non conventionnelles avec la réalisation en cours d'unités de dessalement d'eau de mer pour alléger les prélèvements exercés sur les ressources en eau de surface et les eaux souterraines, et pour aussi avoir un mix hydrique. La troisième action porte sur la gestion de la filière d'assainissement suivant une approche d'économie circulaire avec la réutilisation de l'eau traitée pour l'agriculture, pour les travaux publics et la valorisation des sous-produits en réduisant les émissions de carbone grâce à l'utilisation de l'énergie produite par les boues de vidange et par les eaux usées à travers le biogaz. Il y a aussi l'étude sur la sécurité de l'eau, étude que nous avons réalisée en relation avec la Banque mondiale et qui a permis de dresser le profil pays en matière de sécurité de l'eau à l'horizon 2050 et nous renseigne qu'atteindre la sécurité hydrique exigera des investissements en faveur d'une croissance résiliente ainsi que des réformes clés au niveau des institutions. Toutefois, il est important de souligner que ces actions intègrent largement les préoccupations inscrites dans la déclaration de Dakar intitulée « Un Blue Deal sur la sécurité de l'eau et de l'assainissement pour la paix et le développement » proposée par les parties prenantes lors du 9e Forum mondial de l'eau qui s'est tenu à Dakar en mars dernier. Dès lors, il nous appartient collectivement et politiquement de promouvoir ce type de solution fondée sur la nature, notamment dans le cadre et après la conférence des Nations Unies sur l'eau de mars 2023. Il urge d'engager des mesures fortes comprenant aussi bien des investissements innovants qu'une meilleure gouvernance de la ressource afin d'assurer durablement une alimentation en eau et une gestion intégrée des ressources en eau dans le cadre d'une vision stratégique à moyen et long terme. Enfin, pour terminer, je souhaite qu'à l'issue de cette session, qu'une grande communauté de pratiques sur les solutions fondées sur la nature pour l'adaptation au changement climatique soit mise en place afin de renforcer les échanges d'expériences et d'accélérer la mise en place de cadres d'action à toutes les échelles pour assurer la sécurité de l'eau pour tous. Je vous remercie de votre écoute attentive.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Ministre. Merci pour votre message et merci aussi pour votre soutien fidèle durant tous les événements que nous aurons organisés durant cette COP27. Merci beaucoup. Je cède la parole à Madame Bérangère Couillard, secrétaire d'État pour l'écologie de la République française.
Je vous remercie. Monsieur le Ministre, Madame la Directrice Générale Environnement de la Commission européenne, Mesdames et Messieurs, les conséquences du réchauffement climatique sont d'ores et déjà perceptibles, en particulier sur les ressources en eau à travers des épisodes de sécheresse plus nombreux et plus intenses, comme encore d'ailleurs l'été dernier en France et en Europe. S'il faut continuer de lutter contre les causes du dérèglement climatique, il nous faut aussi lutter contre ses conséquences qui sont déjà visibles et travailler dès maintenant à l'adaptation de nos pays et à ces nouvelles contraintes. En pratique, cela signifie qu'il faut arrêter de considérer l'eau comme une ressource inépuisable. Cela requiert donc une évolution de nos modèles économiques, de consommation et de production également. Ce changement de modèle doit intégrer la préservation de la ressource en eau dans toutes nos politiques publiques, en réduisant l'impact de nos activités sur les milieux aquatiques et en cherchant davantage à valoriser les services que peuvent rendre ces milieux. Ils remplissent en effet des rôles multiples et fondamentaux dans le système climatique mondial. Préservés et donc fonctionnels, ils constituent des puits carbone naturels dont la valeur est encore totalement sous-estimée. Même s'ils sont perturbés, le carbone qu'ils contenaient se retrouve alors libéré dans l'atmosphère, parfois sous forme de méthane, de gaz ou encore générateur de réchauffement climatique. Ce changement de modèle demande de s'orienter sur des solutions fondées sur la nature qui s'appuient sur les écosystèmes pour relever les défis globaux tels que la lutte contre le changement climatique, la lutte contre les risques naturels et la préservation de la biodiversité. La restauration des mangroves en constitue un excellent exemple, celles-ci font à la fois office de puits carbone, constituent des réserves de biodiversité et elles participent aussi à l'autonomie alimentaire et agissent comme un brise-houle à l'autonomie alimentaire qui protège les côtes donc, lors des tempêtes tropicales. Pour développer ces écosystèmes, la France s'est mobilisée à l'occasion du One Ocean Summit qu'elle a organisé à Brest en février dernier. Avec la Colombie, nous avons lancé une coalition internationale pour contribuer au financement de la restauration d'écosystèmes sur la base de méthodologies communes et rigoureuses afin de permettre une véritable compensation carbone bleu. En France, cette nécessité de prendre en compte les services rendus par la biodiversité a été introduite dans la loi en 2016. L'intérêt et l'efficacité des solutions fondées sur la nature pour l'adaptation au changement climatique sont par ailleurs soutenus par des projets concrets. Je pense notamment au projet Artisan, cofinancé avec l'Union européenne depuis 2020, qui, sur 8 ans, vise à appliquer des solutions fondées sur la nature pour lutter contre les effets de la sécheresse dans certaines zones rurales, à limiter les dégâts liés aux inondations dans le sud de la France ou à atténuer les risques de submersion marine en Outre-mer. Je suis convaincue que ces expérimentations permettent de sensibiliser et de faire monter en compétence tous les acteurs concernés pour en déployer d'autres. L'organisation administrative de la protection des ressources en eau et des milieux aquatiques en France joue également un rôle important. Les agences françaises de l'eau sont en effet pensées et organisées à l'échelle des bassins hydrographiques. Elles définissent leur cadre d'action en fonction des spécificités de leur territoire, en s'appuyant chacune sur ce qu'on appelle un parlement local de l'eau, pour travailler à l'atteinte du bon état des eaux, à l'adaptation au changement climatique, mais aussi à la reconquête de la biodiversité. en recourant autant que possible aux solutions fondées sur la nature, pour un budget d'environ 400 millions d'euros par an. Elle cherche ainsi à atténuer les effets de la baisse des débits et de l'augmentation des températures des cours d'eau, les sécheresses durables et également les inondations. C'est avec la même détermination que la France soutient et finance la mise en œuvre des solutions fondées sur la nature dans le monde. L'Agence française de développement doit ainsi, d'ici à 2025, porter à 30% les projets de financement climat ayant des co-bénéfices pour la biodiversité et doubler l'enveloppe allouée à la biodiversité pour atteindre 1 milliard d'euros par an. Des projets portés par l'AFD et financés par le Fonds français pour l'environnement ont ainsi appuyé la reforestation de 7400 hectares dans la cordillère centrale de République dominicaine, permettant la gestion des ressources et du risque hydrique à l'échelle du bassin versant et de mettre en place un réseau de distribution d'eau dans 7 villages voisins. Le projet de ville-éponge, porté par la ville de Monyang en Chine, a également permis d'appliquer des solutions fondées sur la nature pour réduire les inondations urbaines ou encore améliorer l'approvisionnement des habitants en eau. Il nous faut poursuivre et accentuer ces efforts ensemble, tant le potentiel est immense et vous le savez. Citoyens, pour porter cette demande, élus qui doivent être les ambassadeurs de solutions fondées sur la nature, qui sont adaptées à la spécificité de leur territoire, ou architectes et urbanistes, qui ont les clés pour inventer et promouvoir un bâti économe en eau et adapté aux inondations et submersions marines, ou redonner davantage de place à la nature en ville. J'ai confiance en cette volonté commune et c'est avec ce message d'espoir que je conclurai mon propos. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Ministre, pour la présentation de ce cas français et pour l'enthousiasme de votre conclusion. I leave the floor now to Mrs. Florika Fink-Hooijer, Director General for Environment at the European Commission.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. We have the notion of nature-based solutions, which we use both in this climate COP, but we also use it in the biodiversity COP that will be taking place in Montreal in December. But even though this is an instrument among a broader toolbox of instruments, in both COPs, we are not necessarily seeing that everybody understands this intrinsic link between the two COPs and between climate change and biodiversity. And that is a problem, because if we don't accept that, it's very difficult to also accept nature-based solutions, because we are in a vicious circle. If we are still striving, obviously, to abate emissions and go down and to meet the Paris Agreement, but at the same time, ecosystems are degrading and we lose biodiversity, and depletion of materials of Earth's nature is lost. And then we weaken also with that nature's capacity to act and to mitigate or to act as carbon sinks and to help us to adapt to climate change. And we must break that vicious circle. So the answer, and that's why nature-based solutions come in, is to align and strengthen both our ambition, but also the tools and for both climate and biodiversity. So when we reduce emissions, we obviously soften the impact of climate change on the ecosystems. And if we stop excessive human pressure on nature, on our ecosystems, and halt biodiversity loss, or even better, reverse it, then nature, but also we as humans, can better cope with the impacts of climate change. Now, what does it mean then, nature-based solutions? Because we do know we can use them to mitigate and escape this planetary emergency. And we also know that obviously this is not the solution, but it's, as I said, a part in the toolbox that we have to use. Now, when we speak of nature-based solutions, what do we really mean? We heard it already from others, but I know that a lot of people think, oh, this is pushing the burden to those countries who have the most of nature. And that means it's not necessarily a very fair concept, because you would, I mean, I come from an industrial country, I represent the European Union, and you would say, you push it because you have less nature, we have more nature, so nature-based solutions, what does it mean for us? But it's actually not that. And when we talk about nature-based solutions, we say these are solutions that are inspired by nature, they are supported by nature, and we actually also have nature, different type of nature, but nature which is very, very precious for us to be kept in order to come to climate neutrality and halt biodiversity loss. So if it is inspired by nature, supported by nature, it also has to be cost effective, and obviously it has to provide simultaneously environmental, economic and social benefits. And this is what was tried to be achieved as a definition in UNEA 5 earlier this year in Nairobi. And I was there and I know how difficult it was to agree on that. And I know even though we agreed on it, it is still not agreed, and people would say, I still prefer the eco-based approach. But basically nature-based solutions are based and embedded in that. Now, give me a little bit time to explain to you what we do and why it is important to look at this. Because if you want to scale up nature-based solutions, we obviously need investment, but we also need to communicate what it really is, and we need to educate and do capacity building. All of this was already in the Leaders' Pledge for Nature. It was recognized there, and it was said that nature-based solutions are key to several of the initiatives also that we embark on in the European Union. And that's why I wanted to make clear that nature-based solutions do apply also inside. We use that for water management, we use it for climate resilience, we use it for green space management, we use it for air quality management. So we also even use it very much in urban spaces. And if any of you has an interest to, Google European Commission nature-based solutions guidelines. And then you will see how much we want to use it also in Europe, and we are scaling it up. So we also need then, of course, by investment, also the private sector, but it is doable, and therefore we want to, make it more known, this concept. Now let me turn to water. What does it mean for water? And this water nexus and natural water retention measures are actually an example, because if we work with nature-based solutions, we continue to deliver also on water quantification, but also on purification. And that's, I think, extremely important also for SDG 6, which is very much in a backlog, water and sanitation. That's why we have also very high hopes on the UN Water Summit next year, where then also nature-based solutions should be scaled up or would be put forward as one of the solutions to be made known. Because if you find that nexus between water, ecosystems, food, but also energy, and therefore then also security, if you got that right, this circle, I think then nature-based solutions can be great in order to mitigate all of this. I think we also have, through nature-based solutions, to reduce the water footprint. In whatever we produce or what we consume, we use too much water. This is extremely important, and therefore we go for circular solutions. So if we talk about the nature-based solutions, also, as I said, a concept very much that we would like to promote in the context of the Biodiversity Summit in Montreal next December, sorry. And where we talk about protecting 30% of water and 30% of land. Well, when I talk protection, it doesn't mean you should not be using it sustainably. We can use it and we should use it. Protection doesn't mean the two things are excluding each other. But here again, freshwater ecosystems are part of the solution, because why would we want to halt and reverse and protect 30% of land and sea means also freshwater ecosystems. I think this is also important, and if you look at water-based, nature-based solutions, you should also think of peatlands, and there we have other conventions like the Ramsar Convention that come in, or even other parts like the parties of the Eurasian Waterbirds Agreement. Now, just one last part perhaps to explain to you really how we again explain and use it in the European Union. We want to scale up nature-based solutions, as I said, in Europe, and talking about water and water bodies, we have just proposed a legislation for our member states to abide by, which is about restoring nature. Within, we look at the rivers. Now, when you look at calculating and wanting to, what we would say, free the rivers that are now constructed in and restore actually 25,000 kilometers of rivers through the removal of barriers, you have a nature-based solution. And what does it mean? It means jobs, yes, it means economic gains, but it also means you mitigate on climate, you mitigate on and adapt to biodiversity loss, but you also mitigate against floods and also disasters. And that means you have a win-win-win solution with nature-based solutions. And that's, I think, what we wanted to leave here with you as a thought. It is something that we all can use and scale up, whether it's in Africa, in Latin America, or in Europe. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your message and the presentation of the commitments at the EU level and the perspectives. So I know I suggest another round of applause for our three high-level panelists. They have to leave for other obligations. Thank you again for being with us today. It has been very impressive to see all the messages and case studies that you have presented. And now we are entering the second part of our session. This is panel time. We are missing right now one of our panelists, but it was expected. So he will be able to join in a few minutes. On the floor right now, Mrs. Coletha Ruhamya, Deputy Executive Secretary of the Lake Victoria Basin Commission. You're very welcome. Mrs. Asti, Undersecretary of Water Resources and Sustainability at the Secretariat of Environment and Sustainability in the state of Rio de Janeiro. And we are expecting in a few minutes now Mr. Eduardo Tavares, State Secretary of Planning in the state of Amapá, again in Brazil, but in a very different context. And of course, Andrea, you remain part of the conversation if it's okay for you. We'll be very happy to have your insights. And so to start with the panel, Coletha will leave the floor to you. So you work for a transboundary basin organization. You have water resources to manage. You have ecosystems to preserve and to manage. You have populations and communities, of course, living in there. So how do you deal with all these issues? As you prefer. You can come here or stay. Yeah. Here, I think it's better than you can do it yourself with the slides. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Coletha Ruhamya, Deputy Executive Secretary, Lake Victoria Basin. I'm very honored to be in this session, and thank you to INBO and all organizers. I have given my title, my presentation, a title says Lake Victoria Basin, Challenges and the Application of Nature-Based Solutions in Water Management. I'm not going to take much time on the content because you'll be following as I present. I want to touch our core values for the Lake Victoria Basin. We have the mandate that covers 14 areas, but I have picked 7 out of 14 that are more related to nature-based solutions. The mandate covers sustainable development and management of water resources, fisheries resources, forestry resources, wetlands, sustainable agriculture and land use practice, environment and climate change, wildlife conservation, and sustainable tourism. If you pick only these 7, you can see how many sectors you have to deal with, and that calls for integration and mainstreaming nature-based solution in different policies, plans, and strategies. But does it work? I want to share the challenges in the basin, of which I think other basins also have the same challenges. We have stress within the lake, like overfishing, water quality issues, fluctuating water levels, stress in the retreated zones, construction of farming in shorelines, conversion of wetlands where you find those marginalized areas have been used, stress from the basin. This includes land degradation, deforestation, sediment loads, nutrient flowing into the lakes, and that increase the pollution and the water hyacinths. Climate change, of course, floods and severe droughts, and also population growth that has been the source of all the above challenges at some point. But I want to share also the key achievement as we implement nature-based solutions. We have tried to harmonize policies, law and standards, regulations to facilitate nature-based, whereby to strengthen the regional enabling environment. Maybe I didn't touch what LVBC covers. The basin is shared by 5 countries in the East Africa. We have Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, Burundi, and Rwanda. So you can imagine how we have to deal with different states, but also different key players like private sector and other people that are working in the basin. So we also try to work on the basin-wide analysis work and specific studies for informing nature-based programs in the Lake Victoria Basin and decision support. Because if you want to advise, you have to have facts and figures to be able to convince the implementers and decision makers in our partner states. We engage the private sectors to adopt investment in resource efficient and cleaner production with the purpose of reducing pollution. We also built consensus and prepared over 22 instruments for collaborative management of environment and natural resources in the Lake Victoria Basin. This is because there is some sub-basins that you might find that are within the Lake Victoria Basins, but they are shared among probably 2 countries, like one of Mara River is shared between Kenya and Tanzania. So we had to develop some cooperation agreement between the 2 countries to ensure the management is well implemented sustainably. We also implemented some projects in line of rehabilitation of degraded ecosystem within the basin, but specifically also focusing on the areas that are more within the basin and engaging the people and the community on the ground and the partner states to be part of this project for the sustainability purpose. That wasn't done excluding the community livelihood. So we ensured the community livelihood improvement is also tackled and being integrated when we design projects, different projects, to empower communities through alternative nature-based solutions and livelihood implementation of the projects. On this slide, I want to share the challenges as we implement nature-based in the basin. You will all agree that you have the knowledge gap among different key players. You have agriculture, you have urban planners, you have architects, you have engineers, you have environmentalists, you have policymakers. But do they really understand what does nature-based solution is? How do planners of our cities integrate or implement, design and implement the ecological infrastructure into our designing of the cities? So you find most of the time the issue of nature-based is left to environmentalists or probably forestry people, water management people, yet the users of water are different and the key players are from different sectors, including agriculture, urban planners, designers of the houses, engineers, infrastructure, different infrastructures that they use and also destroy water resources. Another challenge that is very key is difficulty in managing trade-offs. When there is a project coming up, the first place to be compromised is where there is nature. There is a road coming, there is a hydropower coming, there is maybe a construction of estates coming. The first place to be thought of is where there is forests. It will be cut off. It will be placed into wetlands. So that land that we think could support the nature-based is being compromised with a short-term benefit of different projects. There is also lack of finance to at least implement tangible pilot projects that can support research in nature-based solution for the specific sectors. As I said, you find not all of us will understand nature-based solutions, and yet we need to have those pilot projects to show what works where and why, and what doesn't work and how can we improve. Another area is a wide range of stakeholders. That is also a challenge with the competing priorities. As I said, we manage a basin that is shared between 5 partner states. Those partner states, they have their priorities. So how do we harmonize the priorities to ensure we have the common priorities to address? So that's where also another challenge is. And on top of that, after managing different partner states, you also have to bring on board other key state and non-state actors that are within the basin. Different level of stakeholders involvement, that is at country level, then also at sectoral level, and also resource constraints, as I have just mentioned. So what you have as strategic focus within the Lake Victoria Basin, I said from here, meaning where we are, to where and how we get there. I have picked this from our strategic plan, where we want to be. Enhanced climate change mitigation and adaptation capacity in the basin through the nature-based solutions. Integrated water resources management and development should be promoted. Social development programs in the basin to facilitate mainly through the nature-based solution. Also, we want to strengthen and expand partnership with the key stakeholders for the better results. We understand you cannot achieve where we want to be without a strong partnership with the other key players. The how part, we develop and promote the operationalization and harmonize the regional policies and the legal framework. We have started this, but we want to move further. Establishment and operationalization of multi-stakeholder steering committees in the EAC partner states. We realized we need to start from the partner state to have a multi-sectoral steering committee that will champion the nature-based solution. Coordinate and facilitate basin-wide data and information generation and dissemination. We are working on to work on the state of the basin, to do assessment and have state of the basin report, so that we have something to share with our partner states to show where the basin is, where is it heading if we don't take action now, and the possible threats that the basin is facing, and how is it linked with all the sectors in development of the basin. Coordinate sustainable agriculture and land use management practice. We have started, it's just a continuation of what we have been doing, and also contribute to the coordinate basin-wide ecosystem monitoring and knowledge management and sharing. We also want to continue to restore and protect selected water catchments and water sources in the Lake Victoria Basin in partnership with the other key players. As I conclude, I just want to quote, the best possible solution come only from the combination of the rational analysis based on the nature of things and imaginative the integration of all the different items into the new patterns, using nonlinear brain power. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Coletha, for this presentation and for showcasing for the Victoria Lake Basin all the necessity of different levels of cooperation, spatial level, but also between different types of stakeholders. And now I'm leaving the floor to Mrs. Anna Asti, Undersecretary of Water Resources and Sustainability for the state of Rio de Janeiro. So we changed the region, we changed the territorial level, but still you have at the policy level and at the operational level this responsibility of water safety and security for climate ambition. Thank you for the title. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Really happy to be here with you. I don't know, almost at night. Good evening to everyone. I'm going to talk to you about our water security program in the Rio de Janeiro state. Yes, we are calling it Water 2030. And for us, water is essential to guarantee adaptation in the state of Rio de Janeiro. In this summer, we had really a big extreme event, and we lost in just one night, 300 lives. So for us, water is for adaptation, a problem, as energy is for mitigation. So water security is a priority in Rio de Janeiro, and we are starting our State Water Safety and Security Program. We just started last year. Is a public policy, and it's based in 4 axes. First of one of them is planning. So we are developing a plan for the next 20 years for 2043, and this plan has nature-based solution as in its core. Water supply, which is really important. We have here tonight with us Leonardo Soares. He's the president of SEDAI, which is the company responsible to produce water for more than 10 million people in the metropolitan area of Rio de Janeiro. It's important to say that the metropolitan area of Rio de Janeiro, 100 years ago, was only 500,000 people. And we are talking about more than 13 million people now. So in 100 years, the cities around the metropolitan area, 22 cities, had to develop an infrastructure for water supply that it was impossible. So sanitation in the metropolitan area of Rio de Janeiro is now almost 50%. And we just started a concession of the sanitation service, the public service, last year too, that will reach 10 million people, and we plan to universalize basic sanitation. It means get from 50% to 90% in 10 years. And the sanitation concession will create 46,000 jobs. So it's really something huge. The state of Rio collected $5 billion through bidding in this process. It's the biggest concession ever done in Brazil. And it's really important because with the process of sanitizing, the sanitation of the metropolitan area, we will be able to recover our Guanabara Bay that is for the last 30 years is really polluted. So the Guanabara Bay will be the basis and the central aspect of our blue metropolis. So we are working as a case study with OCDE. We will start next year with OCDE in the Blue City project of OCDE to become a blue metropolis. What we're going to do is that to revitalize our Guanabara Bay, we have 20 actions to become in our plan. Nature-based solutions for us, it's more than environmental. It's also economic and social. So it's human health and food security for all the regions, sustainable growth, green jobs, and also, of course, ecosystem protection and recovery. We have here with us today Telmo Borges. He is our engineer of forest in Rio de Janeiro, and he is the one today, nowadays, responsible for our climate ambition program on nature-based solutions. So why our Mata Atlântica, our rainforest is so important? First, is the only way to preserve water cycle. We may depollute the metropolitan area through sanitation, but we cannot create fresh water. To have fresh water, we need forest. We need the nature-based solutions. So that's the work we've been doing in the last years. And in COP26, what we have done is that we decided on a goal for 2050, and we want to restore Mata Atlântica forest in 10%. This means 400 hectares of rainforest again. Nowadays, we have 1.8 million hectares of rainforest in the state of Rio, and we want to reach 1.7 million hectares. So this is something really important to be able to preserve and maintain local temperature, decrease evaporation, protect the headwaters, so important to conservation our springs, and guarantee water supply, groundwater recharge, and protect rivers from silting and flooding. And this is the map of Rio de Janeiro. I don't know if you've been there. Anyone here has been in Rio de Janeiro? Okay. You are lucky people. So this is our map, our green map. You can see that this is like a green belt around the 13 million people, the metropolitan area, and we want to preserve this green belt. We have more than 500 protection units of forest around this area, and we want to achieve 40%. So we want to grow this green area in 10%. And so we have these programs, Tomorrow's Forest. Tomorrow's Forest has now $120 million to be invested in the next 5 years, but to achieve our goal, we need $5 billion. So we really need to increase and develop ways to get more. It's finishing now. So we need to increase our way and to develop ways, innovative ways, to also implement financial tools where private sector will be engaged. And also here, SEDAI has a really important program in the state of Rio de Janeiro called Replanting Lives. I think that's the way I can translate. I'm not sure if that's the way. But it's very important because they are now replanting more than 1 million trees around the rivers to preserve the fresh water too and to preserve the rivers. We have a fund, a Mata Atlântica fund, a rainforest fund for the last 10 years, and we succeeded to get 120 million investment, but as I said, we need to reach 5 billion if we want to achieve 10% of Mata Atlântica rainforest. We have also a mangrove program. This is our mapping of mangroves in Rio. We have now, it is the mangroves that we still have, 18,000 hectares of mangroves, but in the past it was much more than this, and we are just with Thiam, we're starting a plan to restore the mangroves. We have a project with INBO called Atlantic Forest. It's our rainforest connection with 285 small producers, rural producers, and we pay for environmental services for those producers. We are just starting this technology in the state of Rio, but we have a potential to work with 55,000 small producers. And this would fit in our aim to achieve 441,000 hectares. Because Rio de Janeiro state is a state of small private lands. So we have to go further in working with small producers and environmental service payments. I think I'm finishing my time, 1 more minute, just to talk about our monitoring program using satellite. It's called Look into the Green. And this is very important because in the last year, we had no deforestation in the last 10 years. We had no deforestation in the state of Rio de Janeiro. We have maintained the 30% of forest. So we have been working really hard on localizing when something's happening, and we go to the location and we stop deforestation. And we use satellites for this. And to finish, to wrap up, what we are doing in a way to achieve a tool to finance our purpose of growing to 10%, in 10% the Atlantic forest is to develop, in a partnership with a NASDAQ technology, a sustainable asset platform that we are just starting in the end of the year to start. It's a private platform. It's not a public platform, but to negotiate carbon credits. And the state is entering the platform to stimulate it with its environmental assets, forests. So the 30%, the 1.4 million hectares, but it's a private platform because we want to stimulate the private sector to come and to invest in our nature-based solution, mangroves, Mata Atlântica forest. Thank you very much. That's the size of Brazil when you look to our natural resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this presentation. And I'm sure that everyone is wanting, hardly wanting to have very soon the opportunity to go to Rio de Janeiro. So, but that's not on my responsibility. We stay in Brazil, but we're moving north. And with you, Eduardo Tavares, you're State Secretary of Planning in the state of Amapá in Brazil. The floor is yours.
Presentation. Yeah. After those previous speeches talking about brain power and carbon credits and all these great ideas, I feel like I have so little to say. But I'm presenting to you some news, some projects from Amapá. That is a carbon negative subnational state from Brazil. So in the Amazon, in the river delta of the Amazon River. So it's Amazon state with all the vulnerability and all the challenges that you can imagine. We have almost 50% of our population under the poverty line, and we have more than 90% of our forest coverage intact, but we also have a lot of challenges, and we are working with a cooperation to build this program, the Bioplateau project, that is founded by the Regional Cooperation Program for the Amazon, with the coordination of the territorial collectivity of French Guiana. The project is supported also by the National Center of Space Studies, the Official de l'Eau de Guyane, and the Regional Director for Territories and the Sea. The project is implemented in the Maroni Basin. It's shared by French Guiana and Suriname, and in the Oiapoque Basin, that is shared by French Guiana and the federal state of Amapá in Brazil, Amazon. The Bioplateau project aims to develop the sharing of information about water and biodiversity associated with aquatic environments between French Guiana and its neighbors, Brazil and Suriname, in particular in the respective Oiapoque and Maroni basins. To achieve this objective, two components. The joint works to improve river hydrological monitoring, Maroni and Oiapoque, are daily hydrologic bulletins on Maroni and Oiapoque, installation of stations to improve hydrological monitoring, study on spatial hydrology, and the other component, the evaluation and sharing experiences about contamination and pressures, consists in note on the impact of river mining on the border river of the Maroni. Note on the pressure identified in Maroni and Oiapoque basins. Integration of bordering countries in the SDH consultation, in French Guiana. This is a consultation that goes from 2022 to 2027. Dialogue on sharing experiences for monitoring pressures and population. And here is a lot of technology coming on. We also have major projects being carried out in Amapá in partnership with the Development Bank, BNDES, a concession project to universalize sanitation in 70 years in all the municipalities in Amapá. It's a huge project. We just did the bidding last year, and we already started the concession, turned the unemployment rates low, and it's making a lot of positive effects in our economy. Today, just so you have a picture of that, today we have only 40% of water coverage and less than 80% of sewer covered. So it's one of our huge problems in the environmental field is the urban problems, the urban challenges, the lack of sanitation, and that is addressed right now. And here in COP, we also launched Amapá, an urban park project with a nature-based solution to protect the mangroves at the mouth of the Amazon River. It's a huge project. It's being built with Phytorestore, and is a project to protect the mangroves that are the wetlands, and the world lost since 1970, 50% until today of our wetlands, of our mangroves, and this is the birth of the biodiversity in the ocean. So we have to act now. It's a climate emergency, and we hope that in COP we get the support, we get to know the net, to build bridges to tackle this challenge. We need to advance in climate finance to protect our waters, forests, and people, especially in vulnerable regions like Amapá, which has half of the population below the poverty line, as I said. We hope that the world can join forces for this great fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation. Again, in a different context with also transboundary aspects and cooperation necessities. So thank you really to the three of you, because you have kept us on track with the time. So we have time for questions and answers, and I see that Eduardo has the mic and has already candidates. Please.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Fran Chappendonk. I'm a climate security specialist with CGIAR, Focused Climate Security. Thank you to all the panelists. My question is for Ms. Ruhamya. So thank you for your extensive presentation. I think some of the key points you mentioned were the need for cross-sectoral coordination, cross-country cooperation at the basin level, and also the need to empower local communities when you're enacting nature-based solutions. Given how the Lake Victoria Basin is a context in and around which conflicts over access to land and natural resources do occur in multiple countries, what is the potential of MBS projects in this context to contribute to peace and social cohesion between communities who may be competing over the same scarce resources? Is that something you factor into your programming in projects? And do you think that peace component is something that should or could fall within the mandate of the Commission? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. And sorry for the interpreters. So please, when you ask a question, take time to speak in your own language. There is another language for this session. Thank you for the question. There is
I think I have the mic.
Okay, yes, thanks.
Hello. Hi, I'm Louise Baker. I'm the Managing Director of the Global Mechanism of UNCCD, which is the sister convention to climate change that works on land and drought-related issues. And I think I feel a bit guilty. I think we work on drought issues, and we're increasingly working at river basin level, including at the Zambezi project in southern Africa. But my impression is that we're kind of coming at the same issues from a different direction, coming at from the water direction and from the land direction. So is that something that I guess the panelists also feel, that it's just we're working in sectoral silos? And then I guess the offer then that we would be delighted to work with more water-based organizations to try to bridge that gap. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. And indeed, land use, to rephrase it, is a key resource in the implementation for nature-based solutions. There was another question, Eduardo, or? You told me 3? So never mind, maybe we'll have time for another round. So who would like to start? Probably Coletha, since you've been directly...
Thank you very much. If I got your question right, is how the communities are involved in the projects, yet they come from different countries. Is that correct? Yeah, when we work actually as a Lake Victoria Basin, we work with our partner states that are countries. So when we design a project, we involve them and the communities on the ground at the earliest stage when we are planning. So we work with the local government that identifies the areas that we are going to work with. And then for the inclusiveness, when we design a project, we look at those vulnerable groups, especially women and the poorest of the poor, for the designing project that will make them have the alternative of their livelihood. So the selection of those groups is actually identified and led by the local communities. So if you are working with a shared ecosystem, but yet there is some boundaries that you will show which local government in which country you are working with. And that's how we partner when we are designing projects. And implementation, they are the one to implement. We only coordinate. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the second question can be answered to by the 3 other panelists. Please take the floor when you want. Do you want to start, Andrea? Maybe? And then Anna and...
Thank you for that question about UNCCD and thinking about drought resilience and land use. So by way of saying the next session is about drought resilience, so we'd love to have anybody stay over and join us for that conversation. We think about it in 3 ways, those connections of how to structure engagement between drought resilience and land management. One is the basin approach, as we've been hearing here. Large basins have, thinking about the kind of management that you have to think about, water balances, large infrastructure projects, whether they're dams or irrigation, and also what's the condition of those basins. But there's like large levers that are usually international convenios and things like that become important. There's also at a community level thinking about resilient watersheds in a smaller scale, where it is at the scale of a smaller basin and there's soil moisture and small effects that we can have on farm or in smaller community levels. Water funds is one example that we've used of creating that smaller scale understanding of change and how to address drought resilience. And then lastly is in agriculture. So much of drought is climatic, but water scarcity is driven by agriculture. And so if we can solve for the opportunity that is latent within agriculture, which is to make it more water efficient, then droughts are less of a problem. It doesn't mean it's not a problem, but it means that we have more buffer and we have more resilience in the system. So there's a real opportunity to enter more deeply and partner with agriculture as a solution to try to advance efforts on drought resilience. So as a starting, but next session is all about drought resilience, so join us.
Thank you, Andrea. Anna, do you want? to complement? Oh, yeah, there's nothing.
No, just to say, Andrea was perfect. That's great. Just to say that we are talking about only one project, you know, like the ecosystem, the environment needs to be treated and worked as one. So in Rio, we are studying the aspect of the territory. So water, soil, all the aspects in just one perspective. That, I think that's the main way to go. But
Eduardo for Amapá.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, because I think those two are perfect. But I mean, we focus in the bioplateau and the sanitation, but we also agree that we need a strategy for bioeconomy, waste management. There's a lot of initiatives, projects, and fields that has to connect, you know, and this is really something important when we talk about basins and land use. So it's really important. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I wanted to share on the last question, our experience in the basin when we design a project in the basin and work with the countries. Actually, at the initial stage, you identify what sectors will be involved. If it's agriculture, land, maybe water supply, whatever. So the country that is hosting that meeting, they call those stakeholders to be part of the meeting as we design the project. And at the initial stage, we define which role will be played by who at the earliest stage before you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for one last question, if any, in the audience. It has been a long and busy day, I know. So I will switch to French for my conclusion. Il est important que nos interprètes, que je vous propose de remercier au passage, puissent travailler dans les deux sens. Et nous les remercions grandement pour leur contribution éminente à cette session. La conclusion me revient, mais je voudrais, de manière synthétique, simplement reprendre quelques éléments. Les solutions fondées sur la nature existent et nous pouvons les rencontrer dans un grand nombre de cas. L'enjeu est vraiment d'accélérer leur mise en œuvre, de changer d'échelle pour qu'elles soient considérées partout, plus largement, comme des solutions viables économiquement, des solutions efficaces au plan de la gestion des ressources en eau et des solutions évidemment pertinentes pour protéger les écosystèmes et la nature. Et j'ai relevé peut-être 3 grands éléments que je voudrais partager avec vous à la fin de cette session. Le premier enjeu, c'est ce besoin de construire, de renforcer la cohérence entre les politiques publiques, l'action publique, entre différents ministères, entre différents niveaux territoriaux de responsabilité. Les panélistes l'ont cité, il est nécessaire d'avoir des cadres légaux harmonisés. Il est nécessaire d'avoir des outils financiers qui soient communs pour gérer les ressources en eau et la préservation de la biodiversité. Il est nécessaire évidemment de mobiliser à chaque fois que possible le secteur privé. Évidemment, en tant que secrétaire général du réseau international des organismes de bassin, je défends l'idée que la notion de bassin, qu'elle soit très large ou beaucoup plus localisée, est un cadre cohérent pour gérer les ressources en eau, bien entendu, mais aussi pour planifier la mise en œuvre de solutions fondées sur la nature. En tout cas, vous l'avez tous dit, la coopération intersectorielle est indispensable. C'est ce que déjà nous essayons de faire ce soir. Les communautés de l'eau et les communautés de la nature ne sont pas une. Et il y a un travail en cours à renforcer pour que le dialogue entre les acteurs de l'eau et les acteurs de la nature se comprennent davantage et construisent ensemble des solutions. Pour ce faire, nous avons besoin de davantage de connaissances, de davantage de connaissances partagées, de davantage de points de vue partagés. Nous avons besoin de davantage de science, de compréhension des écosystèmes et du cycle des ressources en eau et des écosystèmes aquatiques en particulier. Nous avons besoin de connaissances partagées. Les exemples ont bien montré que pour mettre en place des solutions fondées sur la nature avec un impact eau, il faut s'intéresser de près à la forêt lorsque la géographie le nécessite. C'est une évidence, mais là aussi, les communautés humaines concernées ne sont pas les mêmes et il faut les mettre en dialogue. Nous avons besoin de coopération, donc, et j'ajoute que nous avons besoin de davantage de volonté politique. Nous avons ici eu plusieurs responsables politiques encore présents ici et tout au long du panel. C'est évidemment un enjeu clé que les décideurs politiques comprennent la nécessité de mettre en cohérence les politiques de l'eau, les politiques de la nature et soutiennent à travers les programmes de l'action publique la généralisation des solutions fondées sur la nature. Nous avons besoin pour ce faire d'outils financiers. Nous avons besoin aussi de toujours davantage démontrer l'efficacité économique des solutions fondées sur la nature. Et vous avez montré aussi combien ces solutions, dans un grand nombre de cas, sont au cœur du projet de développement économique durable des territoires. Et c'est extrêmement important de passer aussi ce message. Et donc, au final, je vais reboucler évidemment avec ma collègue et complice, Andrea, puisque la mise en œuvre et l'accélération des solutions fondées sur la nature, c'est une question de sécurité. C'est une question de sécurité pour l'eau, c'est une question de sécurité pour la nature, c'est une question de sécurité pour le développement et la préservation de nos usages. Et donc je ne peux que reboucler avec l'interpellation première d'Andrea Erickson. Nous avons cette initiative en cours, sécurité de l'eau égale sécurité écologique, et réciproquement, vous êtes tous invités à signer cette déclaration et à adhérer à cette initiative. Merci beaucoup pour votre participation, merci pour vos questions, merci encore une fois pour les beaux témoignages de nos panélistes et je vous invite à poursuivre cette COP. À très bientôt, merci à toutes et à tous. Et nous faisons une photo de famille devant l'estrade.